Hello, monsters, minions, and masters of the macabre, and welcome to Chocolate Chip Horror, the only podcast with ooey gooey horror goodness in every bite. I'm the Wolfman himself, Anthony, and I'm joined by my wife, Andrea, the Queen of Harpies. We'll be your villains for this listening session. Today is July 2nd, 2026, and this is episode 1 of our newly launched podcast. We did it, sweetie.
We finally did it.
Yeah, it wasn't just an idea anymore. It became a thing. So I'm happy about that.
Also, I always think it's so funny that you call me the Queen of Harpies when I think most people who know me know that I'm actually a vampire.
Well, vampire, Queen of Harpies, whatever, use an evil woman. That's the most important. That's the takeaway from here, people. She's an evil woman. So on this podcast, we'll be discussing, reviewing, debating, and nerding out over horror movies, both new and old. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. We also have a themed snack for every film we discuss, and we'll be sure to share the links to the recipes on social media and our blog. For our very first episode, this one here, we're keeping it classic, simple, nostalgic, with a massive bowl of movie theater style popcorn, complete with that perfect, irresistible movie theater butter smell filling the studio. I can't wait. I love getting it stuck in my teeth. It's just fun. So get ready for that. For a link to the recipe, you can head to our blog or check out any of our social media pages. If that all sounds like a scrumptious time for you, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast right now, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit us in the digital graveyard. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with everything we're doing and get a glimpse of some of those delicious treats we're making to go with the films.
So we'll be reviewing various horror films from both the past and the present, and at the end of our review and discussion, we'll each rate the film on a 5-scale cookie rating system. 5 cookies means it was delicious, 4 means it was tasty, 3 means it was edible, 2 means it's stale, and 1 means that movie is burnt, throw it in the trash, actually throw the whole kitchen away, it was terrible.
Yeah, I can think of some movies right off the top of my head that would fall into the burnt category.
Here's looking at you, Strangers Chapter 3.
Oh my gosh, don't get me started on that one. Now, I imagine a lot of you are wondering, who are these guys? And aside from us both being huge fans of horror movies, we're actually both artists. I'm a digital illustrator. I love to draw, design weird, cartoony looking stuff like monsters and strange cartoon characters, just weird, really weird stuff. You can see my work on my website, anthonywilliamscreates.com. Besides that, I'm also a big fan of 90s cartoons. You'll probably recognize a lot of that style in my work, that weird, 90s look. It's colorful, it's sarcastic, it's gross, and there's a lot of clowns in mine. I apologize about that, but it is what it is. I have an obsession with scary clowns. So.
And I'm a photographer, and I really enjoy photographing people and telling a story through images. The act of taking the photograph itself is obviously pretty fun, but I love playing with lighting and making the props and wardrobe styling and also connecting with people one-on-one. I'm not a huge fan of crowds, but if I can talk to somebody one-on-one personally, getting to know them, then I'm good. We could probably talk all day. And I really do enjoy putting the finishing touches on images in good old-fashioned Photoshop, the old Wild Wild West, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just like any other medium, the whole process truly is the art to me, not just the final act of making that one final image.
Right.
I think this is why I've also really been enjoying experimenting with food photography over the last couple of years. It's so fun trying to style the food to make it look as delicious and inviting as possible, even though, let's be real, in most cases, if you took a bite of it, it would probably kill you.
Yeah, I would love to eat some of that food, but I don't want to get push pins and foam stuck in my throat. I've seen you put together these delicious burgers, and I'm just oh, and then I turn it to the back, and there's tape holding it together and stuff. I'm like, okay, so you can't eat this. Aside from the fact that it's usually been sitting out for an hour, right?
Well, or 2 or 3 or 4,
So good to look at, not good to eat. Mm-hmm. Now, when we're not drawing weird stuff or doing dark and moody photo shoots, you could usually find us on our couch with our lovely cat, Joan Jett, watching a horror movie, snacking, having long, in-depth conversations about horror movies. So we just figured, if we like to do that, we might as well share our thoughts and opinions with the rest of the world. And thus, Chocolate Chip Horror was born.
Yeah, honestly, we've had a few people over the last few weeks ask us, how did you come up with this? And the short answer is, I don't remember.
I can't even tell you when we actually came up with the idea. I just remember I was like, that's a really good idea.
I can tell you honestly that it's been a few years in the making. We initially had the idea a couple of years ago. So I sewed these double-sided aprons that you've probably seen in some of our images already. And I made them by hand. Anthony illustrated our amazing logo. And we used that to add onto the aprons and our chocolate chip horror t-shirts. You know, our very, very special shirts. The only thing we didn't have figured out was a set, which was pretty important because this was initially supposed to be a YouTube channel.
Right.
We did actually attempt to make a set in our old studio, which had multiple rooms, and it was amazing. RIP to that studio.
Yeah.
But the room we were going to use was just way too small, even though our set was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I would have liked to have had chocolate chip horror in there. We had like pictures of horror icons and stuff on the back and stuff. It was awesome.
We put up this fabric on the walls using liquid starch, and it looked really good in the moment, but it was a nightmare to take down.
When we had to move out, we had to peel it all down. It was so gross.
And so the project actually ended up going dormant for quite a while until earlier this year when we said, you know what? What about a podcast? So if you've known us for a while, you might know that we also had a small Etsy shop called Zombie Stash. It's not our first Etsy shop, but it's the most recent Etsy shop that we've had. Anthony would illustrate magnetic bookmarks and stickers and cut them out with our die cut machine. And I'd handle designing the packaging and marketing materials, which is pretty similar to what we're going to be doing right now with Chocolate Chip Horror.
I can't wait for you guys to get some of this stuff in your hands. So along with the launch of this podcast today, we're also launching our official Chocolate Chip Horror Etsy store. So if you head over to chocolatechipHorror.etsy.com right now, you can grab yourself a limited edition cookie tin. And there are only 5 of these cookie tins. And once they're gone, they're gone. So like you can't get it anymore. It's not like you can message us and say, I missed them. Can you just make me another one? It doesn't work that way. So each of these tins contains custom stickers, magnetic bookmarks, all hand-drawn, printed, laminated, and die cut by the Wolfman himself. And then each of the cookie lids on these tins were hand sculpted and painted by my very own Queen of Harpies. And that was like your first time doing that. I don't know how you were able to make it look as amazing as it does, but like they look amazing. When you guys see these things, they're awesome. So, and because she hand sculpted them and colored them herself, each cookie looks different. So like no 2 lids are exactly alike. So yeah, we put a lot of work into these cookie tins. So we hope you'll love them. And if you're a collector of sorts, I know I used to be a collector before, like I realized I was just collecting too much stuff and I wasn't doing anything with it. But if you're a collector and this is the kind of stuff that you like to collect, you'll be pleased to know that every month we'll be releasing a new limited edition cookie tin. So if you're quick with it, you could actually collect the whole set. Like from the time that we release this one to the end of July and every month after that, there will be a different cookie tin that you can collect. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, gotta catch them all.
Exactly.
Okay, so you know who we are, you know what we do. So now I guess we can get right into it.
Awesome. All right. So, moment you guys have been waiting for. You want to know about our love for horror, why we're doing this essentially, and, you know, basically how long we've been fans of horror. So I wanted to talk a little bit with Andrea about our early experiences with horror films. We've been together for a really long time, but you know, we both had different experiences with horror when we were growing up. I think one of our earliest points of connection was our love for Beetlejuice. 1988. That was one of my first horror movies that I ever saw. I didn't see it in theaters, but my dad taped it off of I think it was HBO, and I used to watch it again and again and again, and I begged him to buy me the toys and the action figures for Beetlejuice, so they bought me those. So yeah, like that movie holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, we literally quote Beetlejuice all the time, right along with Addams Family Values.
Yes.
It's kind of a problem.
I mean, I love the first Addams Family movie. I thought it was genius. The second one, for some odd reason, like they elevated it to the point where like every character in that movie is like one of my favorites. Like I can quote so many lines from that movie because just all the characters are awesome.
And I don't even know if either of those movies would actually fall into the horror category, but come on, it's up there.
I mean, it's horror comedy. Like Beetlejuice, Addams Family Values, like those are like horrors that are comedy, like you can't put it in any other category, I don't feel like. Like it's not just a comedy, it's a horror comedy.
Right.
So and then obviously in 1987, Monster Squad came out. And I did see that in theaters. I guess that ages me a bit. Like that's how old I am. I actually saw Monster Squad in theaters. So hopefully some of the listeners are the same age as me, or at least close to my age, and they can remember that experience of seeing Monster Squad in theaters. I thought that was an amazing film. And then that same year, a movie came out by the name of The Believers. I think I showed this to you, Andrea. I did not know the name of it for the longest time because I was just so young when we saw it on TV. But and I didn't even know what it was about. But I was watching it with my sister. There were a few scenes that stood out to me. I don't want to spoil too much of the movie for anybody who has not seen it. It's 1987. I think it stars what is his name? Oh my gosh, Martin Sheen. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly enough, I don't remember very many scenes with him in it.
But there's one scene in particular.
There's one scene in particular that I do remember. Now, there was a couple scenes where I felt like, I think the premise of the movie is somebody is being controlled by voodoo, but there's like different things happening. One of the scenes involves this woman who has this mole on her face. And again, I've only seen it a couple times since the first time, but the mole keeps getting... Spoilers. Right. Let me go ahead and spoil it for you now. Like, if you don't want to hear about this movie, skip past this part. But there is a mole on her face that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And like, just that by itself is kind of gross. I don't know why, but like the idea of a mole on my face getting larger and larger and larger is just, it's kind of unsettling for me. And in this film, it gets so big on her face. And she's like looking in the mirror. And I wasn't entirely certain what was going to happen next, but my sister immediately put her hand over my eyes. And so here I am. I can't see anything but my sister's hand over my eyes. I don't know what's happening. I hear screaming coming from the TV, but I have no idea what's actually happening. And so when she finally pulls her hand away from my eyes, of course I look back at her. I'm like, well, what happened? And she says calmly, like, oh, spiders came out of her face. And I was like, thank you so much for covering my eyes. Because at that age, I was actually deathly afraid of spiders. I love them now. It's really weird. Like, I love spiders now. I used to own a tarantula. But when I was a kid, spiders were like the thing that would have scared me. And so I really appreciate the fact that she covered my eyes. Because she knew that if I saw that, I was going to have nightmares and be jumping into her bed in the middle of the night like, I had a bad dream. Yeah, because you watched that scene, didn't you? So, but yeah, that was one of the earliest memories of that film. And I showed Andrea that same... I think I showed you not the whole movie, but just that scene.
I was going to say, if you showed me the movie, all I remember is that scene.
Right. Because it was like the practical effects in that particular scene. I was like, wow, that would have warped me as a child. Because even watching it as an adult, I was like, dang, how did they do that? That was pretty freaky, you know? Like, just the idea of spiders coming out of somebody's face by itself is just ridiculous. So, but yeah. So there was that. Me and Andrea are big fans of Michael Jackson's Thriller. We talk about this all the time.
Obsessed.
That was like my first encounter with zombies. I can't think of any other. Maybe a video game had zombies in it that I played when I was really, really young. But I'm pretty sure my love for zombies stemmed from Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Definitely. You know, I think we liked that music video so much that it made it difficult to even see the scenes in the movie Michael, where they reenact Thriller, because you're like, nope, that's not right. It's close, but it's just not right.
I have to give props. They did their best to make it as authentic as they could. But like you said, we're so obsessed with that video and have been watching it for so many years that I literally could point out everything that wasn't 100% like accurate.
Yeah.
So it did make it kind of difficult, but they tried. But yeah. After that video, like, I don't know, like zombies were just a thing for me. I always thought zombies were cool because of that book, or I'm sorry, because of that video. Speaking of books, There's R.L. Stein, and I was reading a lot of R.L. Stein books in elementary school. Not just Goosebumps. I did eventually get into Goosebumps books, but even before those, he had a bunch of like trade paperbacks, like Hit and Run and Curtains, his Fear Street series. I was reading all of those at a very early age. Again, that all of these things, that and watching episodes of Tales from the Crypt. What else? Ghostbusters. Obviously, you're a fan of Ghostbusters, babe. All of these movies and TV shows and cartoons and stuff from the early 80s and 90s, they all pretty much like created this slowly growing love for the genre of horror.
Yeah, I mean, there's some overlap with my list as well, but I'll probably point out the ones that stand out the most. Return to Oz. If you haven't seen that movie, it is definitely baby's first horror film.
Yeah. For sure.
Spoilers if you haven't seen this movie from 1987. But we have a witch who has removable heads. And she keeps them in beautiful, ornate cabinets. Come on. She's literally sleeping in a bed without a head on. Amazing. We have Death Becomes Her, which also technically probably isn't a horror film, but come on. Dark comedy for sure. Night of the Living Dead remake, Tony Todd, R.I.P.
And I didn't even see that movie until way later.
Yeah.
And when I finally saw it, I was like, why did it take me so long to see this? Because I had already seen Candyman at that point.
But also Return of the Living Dead. It's the only reason why I had to stop and just think about it a little bit. Like, which did I see first, Return of the Living Dead or Michael Jackson's Thriller? I'm not sure because I'm an 80s baby. So, even though Thriller came out first, maybe I saw Return of the Living Dead first. Either way, classic, amazing.
Yes, one of my favorites for sure.
So, I have Nightmare on Elm Street listed, but I have to say, as much as I love that movie, Dream Warriors, chef's kiss.
My sister
so
was
good.
Big fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, as well as Halloween.
It's even fascinating to see the changes in the costume and the makeup and the prosthetics. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So many details. So this one is not a movie, but I had to list it, and I think you know why. Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Love that game. Absolutely obsessed with that game.
Terrible at it.
I'll be the first one to admit I had to use Game Genie when I played it when I was a kid because I only got but so far, and then after a while I was like, I keep dying. I think it was the big baby. The big baby kept killing me. It was either the big baby or the chainsaw wielding maniac through the bushes because he can cut through the bushes. So there's no refuge. You're taking me back now. Like the nights I stayed up playing and trying to beat Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
And then we found out recently that there's a second game.
Yep. And that is not something that I knew.
No.
Until literally what was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago?
I think it was earlier in the year, but it's a very recent development.
Yeah. I was like, wait, there's a sequel to this? Unbelievable. So anybody out there who plays horror video games, and was aware of the sequel to Zombies Ate My Neighbors, let me know if you actually played that.
Of course. Are you afraid of the dark?
Obviously.
Some of those episodes even now are still pretty creepy.
One of my favorite episodes was the one with the fear soup. Just the concept of a soup made out of people's fears. They put you in a room and they show you exactly what you're afraid of, and the fear that you experienced is liquefied and turned into an ingredient for a soup. That's just, how did they even come up with that?
Right.
How did Nickelodeon say, okay, no, we can do that? I would have been wait a second.
Yeah.
You know what they would have had to show me to generate that soup, don't you? Just fill the room with house centipedes. Fill
or grays.
Or grays. Just have me sitting in a bed and just like in the movie Communion, have a gray peeking around the corner at me with those big black soulless eyes. Yeah, you would have had more soup than you needed.
Yeah, for me, it just would have been E.T.
I find it so ridiculous that you are afraid of E.T.
I still, I cannot stand.
She's not afraid of grays, but she's afraid of E.T.
I can't deal with that. No. So, obviously there's Goosebumps books, but I read a very lovely book titled The Dead Kid Did It, about a dead kid who lived in a locker. And that was very pivotal for me. My parents usually could not get me to read a book if they suggested it. But if I came across something on my own, look at this. It's about a dead kid in a locker. Yep. So
And for me, like my parents never really suggested books to me either, but my mom was a teacher. So when I expressed interest in reading, she didn't care what I was reading. She would actually prefer to buy me books than toys. So if I told her about a book that I really liked, she would immediately go out and buy it for me. That's how I ended up with so many Goosebumps books. So she was like, he's reading them, so I'm just going to keep buying them. Like she was big into reading. And it's actually interesting that you bring up that book. I think I actually heard of that book. But it reminds me of that other book, The Little Vampire. And I used to read that book back to back. Lovely story about this kid who ends up meeting a vampire and they become friends. And then he meets the vampire's sister. They go back to the grave and, he learns all about, how vampires live and stuff. They give him a cape so he can fly. Like, it's crazy. Like, it was one of the most interesting books. And I used to read it and then just, like, reread it. It was, like, something that I was, like, obsessed with. So, just you bringing up that book reminded me of that one. So now you know how we started out. Obviously, we're both 80s babies. Because we're 80s babies, obviously we didn't get to experience firsthand that entire era of 80s horror until afterwards. Whereas, anybody older than us would have been growing up in the 80s and, they would have probably been old enough to go to the theaters to see all those great 80s horror movies. So we didn't actually have a chance to do that until the 90s horror rebirth started. And, for me, that was kind of sort of like how I solidified my love for horror. Like even after reading horror books and playing video games and watching Are You Afraid of the Dark, stuff like that, I didn't even really consider myself a horror fan. But like, when the 90s hit, obviously towards the end of the 80s, the market became oversaturated with horror movies. Like they were everywhere. Everybody was doing the whole kill the teenagers, spill the blood. There's the, the slasher. And it became like so oversaturated that, a lot of the big studios, they were starting to get tired of it. The baby wasn't cute anymore. Big name franchises like Freddy's Dead in 91 and Jason Takes Manhattan in 89, like they weren't looking good for the genre. And a lot of studios weren't interested in rolling the dice on horror films anymore. It kind of went to like a dark age of horror, if you will. Like we started to see a decline in studios taking on these horror films. But it wasn't actually dying. What was happening was more of like an evolution of sorts. And so like in the 90s, a lot of those horror films I do vividly remember. My dad used to take me to the movies and I remember seeing a lot of those films in theater. So of course, like Candyman in 92 or Arachnophobia even in 1990. Again, I was scared of spiders, but I did not miss that movie. Like I saw that movie.
Take out Batwood.
Put in Goodwood. John Goodman, one of my favorite characters. But yeah, so a lot of those films, Buffy the Vampire Slayer in 92. I don't know if you saw this, Man's Best Friend, about the dog in 1993.
I cannot remember if I've seen it.
It's about the genetically altered dog that has like traits from different animals and it just goes on a killing spree.
I feel like I have seen it before.
It's kind of a cheesy concept, but back then I thought it was actually really well done. Spoilers. Favorite scene is when the dog climbs up I think he either climbs up a tree or an electrical pole to get a cat and swallows the cat whole like a snake.
I noticed that you don't have the legendary film Leprechaun listed. So
a little information about the Queen of Heartbeats across from me. She has a strong love for movies that are so bad that they're actually kind of good.
Actually, I don't love Leprechaun, but I do love Troll 2.
Yes, and that was the example I was going to use. When it comes to movies that are so bad that they're kind of good, she's a big fan of movies like Troll 2. We both love Sharknado. Like I can't get enough of that film, sorry. The Sharknado series is just gold. So like, all these great movies from the 90s. And then later on in the 90s, you had movies like Species, which I also saw in the theaters. I loved that one. And then Tales from the Hood in 95.
So good. If you haven't seen Tales from the Hood, you really need to check it out. Not the sequels.
No, you can skip the sequels. The first one is the only one that you really need to see. I feel like, especially after some of the later films that we've seen, that film was just like revolutionary in and of itself. I kind of... Obviously, there's comedic aspects to it a lot, But I feel like that film kind of fits into the genre of films like Get Out or
Yeah.
Us that are, speaking about, or even Candyman, that are out actually speaking about,
Like racially charged
Yeah.
and socioeconomic.
It was one of the first films to do that, right? So, even at a young age when I saw that film, I realized what he was saying. It wasn't just a bunch of scary stuff or a bunch of funny stuff. Like, it actually had an important message. That last bit before they realize that, where they are, and they're trying to tell that gangster kid, this is the life that you built, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, this is what you want to do, like, look at the consequences of your actions, the people that you've killed and everything. And, like, a lot of horror movies weren't making statements like that. They were just like, kill everybody, the slasher wins,
Right.
So I always thought that movie was really cool. And then obviously, late 90s, you got Scream, you got From Dusk Till Dawn, The Craft, just to name a couple of them. In 97, Anaconda.
Of course, Anaconda.
Yes, definitely Anaconda. One of my favorite films. It's so silly. It's so wild. Is it even considered like a horror movie? I mean, it's about a big snake, so I guess it would be, but it's just so funny.
I think it's one of those movies where the acting chooses the category that
Right.
it belongs in, the genre. So I'm going to say yes.
I can't remember who the actress was, but when she's like talking to John Voight and she's like, it was you who brought that snake. You brought the devil. And I'm just like, that was an Oscar winning performance. That was great. You get your check at the end of the day. Like, that.
Nailed it.
We don't have to do any more takes. That was the best acting in the entire film. Then you have, movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like, the 90s had a very big collection of movies that actually meant something to me. They weren't just movies that I saw because they were on TV. Like, I sought these movies out. A lot of people have a horrible experience when they're talking about Event Horizon, but I will die on this hill. Event Horizon was one of the best sci-fi horrors ever. I don't care how unrealistic it was. That movie was so entertaining, so well done. Always love that film. And then you've got movies like 1998 Strangeland, which to me was a really awesome film just because it's a soundtrack by itself. I was big into a lot of those bands back in 98. You're also a fan of The Faculty, which came out in 98. That was another really good one from the late 90s. And then obviously M. Night Shyamalan's Sixth Sense in 99 and The Blair Witch Project. Homebrewed right here in Maryland.
Such a big deal.
Yeah. Like, these are really important films, right? Like, genre-defining films. And then after that, obviously, we have the 2010 era.
Yeah.
You can tell a movie that was made in 2001 from a movie that was made in, like, 99. Even that little bit of time.
Because I feel like by that point, everything was about the new millennium. So you go back and you look at those movies and you see all the cool tones in the film and you see more references to technology. So like when you think about The Ring and it's the VHS tapes, which I mean, by then we had DVDs.
Right. They hadn't entirely phased out VHS, but like more and more people were jumping on the VHS or the DVD train.
Yeah. Or even when you think about 28 Days Later, that was recorded on that cheapo camera, but like it was quote unquote intentional.
Right.
I think that that's really interesting too.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they talk about the 2000s to the 2010s, they speak about the torture porn era. So you have films like The Hostel that came out in 2005 or Saw that came out a year before that. And then there was a brief moment where there was a J-horror wave, like Japanese horror wave, where films like The Ring and The Grudge came out. I was a fan of The Grudge. I know you don't really like The Grudge.
Not a huge fan.
You'd probably prefer The Ring. I don't know why. I feel like The Grudge was a good movie just because, to me, it was extremely scary. Obviously, that's debatable. And then in the 2010s, we had stuff like James Wan's Insidious, which
we rewatched very recently.
Right. And I still think that film holds up, at least the first two, After that, I did feel like it kind of was getting stale. But I know that in horror, there is a tendency for people to get really excited about a film and then they just go, oh, you like it? Let's make 17 more and make each one get progressively worse. And,
Here's looking at you, Saw.
Yeah, I'm just like, at some point there should just be like a limit. Like, okay, we can't milk this cow anymore without jumping several sharks. So let's just stop now while we're ahead. And I mean, like, even the Conjuring series, I'm just like, okay, I mean, they could have stopped after the second one, and all the other movies that were spawned from that universe, like The Nun and what was the other one that was from that?
Annabelle.
Yeah, Annabelle. Like, those films didn't have to happen. I didn't care enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't need any more dolls. We have Chucky. I was fine with Chucky. You don't need to introduce any more haunted dolls. I don't think anybody's taking it seriously. And all the AI and computer technology in the world is not going to make me scared of a doll.
But we did have creepy dolls in Tales from the Hood.
We did. And there was no technology involved with that. They were haunted dolls.
They were haunted dolls.
They were the dolls of souls who were killed. That, to me, isn't necessarily the scariest thing, but when I'm watching a horror movie that is supposed to be, you know, imaginary and we're supposed to be trying to imagine this world, like, that makes more sense. But then you have films like Ari Aster's Hereditary or Midsummer, for that instance. And those are two of the scariest films I've ever seen. The idea of going to another country that you're not familiar with, you don't have any sort of real support system there except some guy that you know, and you know, you find yourself on essentially a commune, like it's a cult. Like, that by itself is scary. And then you know, add on all the crazy stuff that happened in that film and the ways that people died. It's just like, that's scary. That's seriously scary.
Definitely. And I know a lot of people say that Midsummer and Wicker Man are way too similar, but I think there's enough differences where I can truly appreciate both films.
Absolutely.
For what they are. And I'm telling you, Midsummer is so beautiful while being so creepy all at the same time. I love Midsummer.
I think it was a really smart idea to shoot the majority of that film in broad daylight. Something about all that horrible stuff happening in the daytime. You know, this isn't nighttime at the Amityville house. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are in broad daylight. There's flowers everywhere. There's girls dancing and singing everywhere. This is supposed to be a beautiful scene. You know, you don't think anything horrible is going to be happening here. And then all this horrible stuff just happened.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy. So where are we now? We're in the 2020s, right?
Yeah.
We're looking forward to a lot of different things. We have seen a lot of different things. There have obviously been some standout films. There's also been some duds. I don't think we're ever going to get to a place where we're not at the mercy of just bad horror films. Like, that's still going to happen. But the cool thing about it is that a bad horror film to you could be an amazing horror film to somebody else, you know? And so I think when it comes to films that are coming out now, you know, this constant elevation of horror, we're talking about films that are like seriously unpredictable, how the pandemic from 2020, how that affected the world of horror in and of itself, and how storytelling had to be done. The past like 6 years, if we're talking about from 2020 till now, some of these films have been just different. You know what I'm saying? Like, from another planet.
I mean, we have like The Black Phone, which I know I liked more than you did, but I love The Black Phone. I love The Black Phone too. I thought it was so amazing. Talk to Me. We had a weird experience with Talk to Me. We saw it in theaters, and I think we had a hard time determining whether or not we actually liked it because there were a bunch of teenagers who kept coming in and out of the theater. It was not the best experience, and every time we've tried to watch it since then, we fall asleep. But I think it's actually a decent movie. I don't know why we can't seem to get through it.
And I you know, at first I was like, maybe I'm just not putting enough effort into really trying to enjoy this film. As you said, the experience that we had at the movie theater was horrible, but that's going to make any movie bad. You know, if somebody's kicking the back of your chair or talking loudly, laughing loudly, you know, teenagers coming in and out, you're not going to have the best time while you're watching it. But, you know, even when we were here in the privacy of our home trying to watch it, at some point during that film, I just lose interest. And it's not even because it's a bad film. I'm not sure, but it's like somewhere along the lines, the storytelling changes for me and it isn't nearly as engaging.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else had that same experience, but I know for me, I've tried to watch it again multiple times because from the beginning, you know, it's a very awesome film. I feel like it was innovative, you know, it wasn't anything that we had seen before. I like the idea behind the film, but at some point I'm just like, okay, it's not keeping me engaged.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas like Bring Her Back.
Yeah, I was engaged the entire time.
The entire time. And I remember being so angry the entire movie.
Yeah. The end of that movie, which I'm not going to spoil for anybody, but the end of that movie specifically made me angry, you know?
Yeah.
But it was an anger that was based off of the characters and how well they were acted out. You know, like you were supposed to be angry at these characters, you know, or this character in particular. And so, you know, I still consider it a great film. You know, as mad as it made me, it was still, in my opinion, a good film. Same with Speak No Evil.
Oh,
Now, we saw the original before we saw the remake. And I'm still a little confused why a remake was even done. But we had seen the original first. And again, great movie, but not to spoil too much, it was bleak.
very bleak.
It ended like, screw you. That made me feel real nasty afterwards, you know. And sometimes that's okay. Like, you know, if I see a film that just like shakes me up after I finish watching it, that's not necessarily this movie was bad. It's just, it had an effect on me.
It actually made you feel something, like A Quiet Place Day One.
Right. Same kind of thing. You're just like, I felt something after I watched that film, you know? And not every film does it. Some films just end and you're just like, so what was that?
Okay, so that was it?
Yeah.
No, A Quiet Place Day One, I just really felt for Lupita Nyong'o's character in that film. And the cat, I was on edge the entire movie because I'm just like, please do not hurt this cat.
Right. I was rooting for the cat the whole time. I was like, please just let the cat be okay.
I think out of all the Quiet Place movies, that one's the strongest. And I know some people are like, how can you think that? But no, like, I actually truly felt something for those characters and I wanted them to thrive and succeed.
Right. And I mean, like, for me, the strongest one for me will always be the first one. And that's specifically because I remember the experience that I had while I was watching the first one. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. When she's carrying that baby and she comes down those stairs and injures her foot. So now she's got to be quiet because she's going into labor. She's got to be quiet because she's got a gaping gash in her foot. And she's got to be quiet while she's hiding from these monsters who can hear everything. Like, what a crappy situation. Or like when they were in the silo and they were like literally getting buried alive by all the grain that was in there. And like the brother like sinks down and like she's like digging for him and everything. I was just like, this movie is making me feel really uneasy. Because you know at any point if they make too much noise, here come those monsters, you know? So it's like there's like danger from all sides. And it pulled no punches. I mean, it lets you know what kind of film it was going to be very early on in the film. And then after that, you're just like, wow, okay. Just using those films as an example really elevated films in the last 6 years. I'm a big fan of the Alien series, so Alien Romulus was definitely on my list of one of the best films in the past few years.
Yeah, that was really good. I love Pearl.
Yes, Pearl was great. Pearl was absolutely great. And to me, Pearl was probably the better of the three. Like if I had to put them in order, I'd probably say Pearl was first, then X, and then Maxine.
And Maxine, but like Maxine is like way, 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 way down.
Didn't do it for me.
No.
Maxine did not do it for me. As you listen, you'll see a pattern here. A lot of times when Andrea and I see these films, it's very interesting because we'll have the same thoughts about certain films, but we won't say anything in the moment, obviously because we're watching the film. But then afterwards, somebody will say, either her or I will say like, yeah, that one scene made me feel so bad. And the other person will go, I felt the same way at the exact same scene. You know what I'm saying? Like we tend to see eye to eye on a lot of these films that we watch. And I guess that's one reason why we're together because like, let's be honest. As soon as I saw that you had a copy of the original It film at
on VHS.
On VHS in your dorm, I was like, yeah, I think I love this woman. Because we always just really connect when it comes to horror films. So yeah, like all of these films that came out, you know, Ugly Stepsister, obviously good. Sinners. And I mean, I know a lot of people thought that Weapons was a really amazing film. To me, and I think Andrea shares this opinion as well, Weapons was good, but I do not think that it was worth all the admiration that it gets. Like a lot of people consider that to be the best film of 2025, and I would strongly disagree.
Yeah.
A lot of people would also say that it's a better film than Sinners, and
which blows my mind.
I would wholly disagree with that. You know, and if that is the comment that makes you turn this podcast off, I wish you well. But Weapons is not better than Sinners, in my opinion. Not even close. It's a good film. I like what they were doing. The ending was definitely the part that lost me. I was not a fan of how they ended that film. Just that entire scene was just silly to me. It just kind of fumbled it for me. So yeah, no. Not better than Sinners. I thought Sinners was the best film of 2025, and I will stand by that.
I mean, but we've definitely had a lot of really great films over the last few years. I mean, Late Night with the Devil, Evil Dead Rise, Nosferatu, Smile 2. I mean, we weren't huge fans of the first Smile, but
No.
Smile 2, whoa.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That second one, they pulled out all the stops on that one. That one was good. It's not every day that you see the first film and you end up liking the sequel more than the first film. Even the latest Halloween films, the first one I saw and I was like, okay, this is good. And then the second and third one just dropped the ball. I was like, these are not good films. And it got progressively worse. Like the second one was bad. The third one was like horrible. So it's very interesting how, Smile, the first Smile film didn't really do anything for me, but the second one, I was like, okay, I like that.
I think the only thing I didn't like about the 2018 Halloween was the fact that it was so removed from all the other Halloweens, which, I mean, it's not the first time that was done, because, I mean, we had Halloween H2O with Josh Hartnett and his hair, but it was just so different. I still really enjoyed that, though, and I know a lot of people did not like that one, which really surprised me, but it just kind of went downhill after that one.
Right. Now, 2026, we've got some films that have, really been standout horror films, in my opinion. Stuff that, when I think of like the future of horror and where the genre can go and what we can do and the kind of attention that these films can actually bring to people who may not typically watch these kind of films. They're not just trying to be scary or gory. They're not trying to just kill people on screen and then say, and cut. Like they're actually like exploiting people's real fears and using really good actors, shooting things beautifully, to reference a couple of them. Obviously, we cannot speak about great films in 2026 without mentioning the huge success of Curry Barker's Obsession. I mean, that entire story. He starts on YouTube making comedy skits, takes a chance, next thing you know, unbelievable success.
I think one of my favorite things about Obsession is the discussions that it's ignited since its release. It's interesting to see that there are people who have very strong views on either side about that film.
Yeah, specifically whether or not Bear was the villain or not. Like that's the
spoiler.
That's
he is the villain.
That's the biggest argument. I'm just like, I'm not really sure how you guys don't see that he is the villain. Like, there's no argument. Bear was a piece of crap. So yeah, 2026 and moving forward, we've got some really awesome films. Our first official movie review will be about 2026 Undertone.
Yeah, that will be pretty exciting. We've seen it both at home with headphones and in the theater.
And if you have the capability to watch the film at home wearing headphones, that's the way to do it. I mean, obviously, if you got it like that and you got like a huge surround sound system that you can crank and really make it scary in there, that's cool too. But we watched it with headphones. That changed the experience for me, for sure. And obviously, Kane Parsons' Backrooms. Honestly, I wasn't moved by that one.
No, I have to confess, we both fell asleep in the theater.
Yeah, that one didn't really do it for me. I didn't understand what it was saying. It was just strange.
But I'm wondering if we should do a deep dive into the short films that go along with it, and maybe we would appreciate it a little bit more then.
I'd be willing to do that for sure. I feel like because I fell asleep, maybe I didn't give it a good college try. So I'd be willing to revisit it, do a little bit of research on the liminal spaces, shorts that you can find on YouTube, to see if I can gain a better appreciation for Backrooms. Because a lot of people seem to really love that film.
What I appreciate is how young the director is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing.
Like the idea that, Kane Parsons and Curry Barker at such a young age have, I don't want to say mastered storytelling, but they have definitely made it clear that they understand the dynamics behind creating a story that is both engaging, that is able to exploit real fear, and is not cookie cutter. It's not something we've already seen. It's not something that's basically rehashed. I'm really eager to see what Curry's going to do with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of us has been entirely impressed with that series since like 2003.
It's not my favorite movie, period. It's just not.
The original,
Yeah.
I don't really need to see it again. I've seen it. I don't need to see it again. I guess we can sign off now, right?
I suppose so.
You know what kind of films we like at this point. You know what we're looking forward to. If you guys are interested in this, share the podcast. Let people know that we're doing this. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Share it like crazy. Follow us in the Digital Graveyard on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We're also on YouTube. Forgot about that. We're also on YouTube.
If that's what you want to call it, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's not video yet. We're getting to that point. But as of right now, it's all audio. But on Instagram, at the very least, you'll be able to see some of those tasty treats that we're cooking up.
Yeah, but don't go cleaning up those cookie crumbs just yet, because this is our grand launch. We aren't making you wait for our first official movie review.
Nope.
Our companion episode is live right now. Flip over to the next track in your feed where we are breaking down Ian Toussaint's massive 2026 audio nightmare film, Undertone. And we have a really delicious treat to go along with that as well.
We're going to be diving deep into the sound design, the dread, and giving it our very first official cookie rating. So, until the next bite, I'm the Wolfman Anthony.
And I'm the Queen of Harpies, Andrea.
Now get out of our graveyard.